Hi and welcome back to Elder Asks. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming. If you're not, we can change that next time. I'm just going to get straight into it for today's video. Last time we done 5 times the CIA have lied to the people, and I actually really enjoyed that, so we're going to do another 5 times the governments have lied to the people. Not so much just the CIA this time. So we're just going to get straight into it, no messing around, and we're going to start with number 5, and it's Operation Sea Spray.
Soil. Not in a lab, not on soldiers, on an entire city. This wasn't science fiction. It was Operation Sea Spray, a classified biowarfare test that turned 800,000 civilians into unwitting lab rats. The Cold War wasn't just nukes and spies, it was also petri dishes and bacteria. As the US raced the Soviets in weapons tech, scientists feared germ warfare could be the next battlefield. So the military asked a dangerous question: what happens if a U.S. city is attacked with airborne bioweapons? In September 1950, the U.S. Navy sailed into San Francisco Bay. Over 6 days, they released huge clouds of bacteria into the fog. The main strain, Serratia marcescens, chosen for its bright red color and trackability. The government called it harmless. But no one told the public, not the hospitals, not the city, not even the mayor. They just watched. A week later, the city saw a spike in rare infections. 11 patients checked into Stanford Hospital with strange urinary tract infections. One man, Edward Nevin, died. His family never knew it was caused by a government experiment until decades later. The Navy insisted it was a coincidence. In the 1970s, Operation Sea Spray was declassified. It turned out this was just one of hundreds of secret experiments. The military had released bacteria in New York, St. Louis, and across the Midwest, all in the name of national defense. No warning. No consent, no accountability. Operation Sea Spray was a test, but it tested more than bacteria. It tested how far a government would go, and how little the public would question it. If they sprayed a city with bacteria, what else have they done that we don't know about, or worse, that we do?
So you see there, just like even in the 1950s, they were quite willing to spray people with bioweapons of the time and stuff like that there. And it's like, when has anybody ever said recently where it's like, oh, that's a bioweapon, or the government are putting out bioweapons, and people have argued that that just wouldn't be something that happened now. So they've done that over a whole city. There was 800,000 people in San Francisco, and they've done that over the whole city in 2 different aerosol bursts from the Navy ship. So they had the first one, then they had the second one in a 7-day period. And there was an 800,000 population of San Francisco at the Bay. There was 11 people who were left with long-term injuries, and there was one person who died, who was actually, you seen in the video there, it was ruled that they had nothing to do with the death. But I also want to point out as well that these files were hidden and weren't actually released or found out or discovered or whatever until 1970s. So they've actually stayed hidden for over 20 years. So if they're doing a report on whether or not this was linked to someone's death, that'd be well gone and buried up by time 20 years down the road, and they revisit it and go, oh, maybe it was, but they've never ever done that. So they're obviously going to say it's like the death has nothing to do with any of this, looking back on it, because they could just distance themselves from it and nobody will know any different. But how can they even say, just to link it together, 2 different things, his death and that trial, but it stayed hidden for 20 years. There must be a link, and they must know it's that from what he actually died of as well. It's the type of poison, it's Serratia infection, and it's the type of poison they're using back to spray San Francisco with. And the man just happened to die with the same infection of the poisons that were spraying in San Francisco in the 50s, but it was nothing to do with them. So that's just another wee example of how the government are quite willing to literally use bioweapons against you and not even tell you, not even think it's relevant to go clear the area, get out. We want to see the effects on, brick buildings. We want to see what happens if we were to clear out an area, what happens in all these materials. They want to see what happens on your body, your bones, your skin. They want to see how they can use this in the future. It's never about helping the people. So if they were worried about, you know, bioweapons and stuff like that there, surely the last thing they would do is go and release a bioweapon on their own coast, on their own cities, their own people. It just doesn't add up. So that there was Operation Sea Spray. It was in the 1950s, and once again, it was a lovely wee treat for the people from the government. So we're just going to crack on. Number 4. And at number 4 this week.
1953, Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, announced his plan to nationalize Iran's oil industry, freeing it from British control. This decision made him an enemy of Western powers. At the time, all of Iran's oil fields were controlled by the British-owned Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which later became British Petroleum or simply BP. The British government was furious about the nationalization, while the United States grew fearful that if Mossadegh succeeded, Western control over Middle Eastern oil would be seriously threatened. So, they decided to remove Mossadegh from power and assign the task to the CIA. At the time, Kermit Roosevelt, the CIA's chief for the Middle East, collaborated with Britain's MI6 to plan a coup in Iran, which they named Project Ajax. The CIA pumped vast sums of money into Iran, attempting to incite rebellion, but Mossadegh was too popular for their efforts to succeed. To undermine Mossadegh, the CIA bribed Iranian political figures, military officials, and religious leaders to spread controversial remarks against him. They flooded the media with false rumors and propaganda, portraying him as a threat. Meanwhile, hired gangs were paid to attack religious leaders, making it seem as if Mossadegh ordered the assaults himself. This fueled public distrust, plunging Iran into chaos. Meanwhile, Iran's Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was frustrated with Mossadegh, as the prime minister had forced him to follow constitutional limits, reducing his authoritarian powers. Though Mossadegh's popularity left the Shah powerless, the CIA secretly supported him, leading Reza to issue Mossadegh's dismissal, only for Iran's parliament to reject it. Fearing the fallout, the Shah fled to Iraq and then Italy. The CIA prepared for an armed rebellion, stockpiling weapons near Iran for a 10,000-member guerrilla force.
1953. It's a combined effort between the CIA and British MI6. Now, as you've seen the video there, the reason being was oil, simply oil. There's no other reason. It was just because a British company owned Iranian oil, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, and basically, as you heard in the video, the leader of Iran at the time wanted to nationalise the oil, meaning therefore it's like it wasn't somebody's to give away anymore, meaning Britain would have to pay for their oil. So the two of them got together, and they basically came together and they carried out these attacks in Tehran and stuff like that there. Now the thing about that is, not only were they backing against the guy that was in power because he wasn't letting them have oil, they were also propping up his opponent and stuff like that there, and they were also funding, giving guns, all the usual stuff that, you know, America just never does to the dissidents and the terrorists and the people who want this government out. But there's also an RV thing that there as well. Now, when you look at like geopolitical politics in the Middle East, spanning from them, there's other wars that have fell out where Iran have been at the centre of it, and you think that way back from 1953 that America's been in control of this government. Now, if you're in the control of this government and you're one of the world's superpowers, is there any reason why you would give control of this government up? So when you want this government to do everything you want and pay you money and be a benefit to your country, would you give that up? Now, if you're a superpower, you don't have to. And that's largely shaped the narrative for that region, and why so often see people death to America and stuff like that there. And that's like the soundbite. It's because America is really disliked in that part of the world because of the tactics of the CIA of getting in and overthrowing their government, especially now with the internet. Everybody knows, everybody's wise to it, and everybody's, you know, spotted the patterns of what the CIA have been doing. So anytime it's like there's a news report about your country or anything like that there on the news, you know the CIA is throwing them over, especially in America, and there's a lot of South Americans there. It's like, you know, Venezuelans and Cubans and stuff like that there. So America's quite, you know, diverse in terms of nationalities, not obviously just colour, but I mean, it's like they're quite diverse in nationalities, given that they weren't always the United States, you know. So what happened from that point is the UK and America, so once they put like blockades and attacked them, stuff like that there, so they couldn't get their oil out. So it was a dying war because they couldn't make money to fund the war because they couldn't get their oil out, and the UK and America put blockades to like sort of hold them in. And again, America used the Cold War with Russia as a reason to go and being involved with the Middle East, because Russia had allies and Russia had, you know, the support of the region and stuff like that there. And again, it's that they use communism as the boogeyman to go in and get whatever they wanted. And it turns out in this particular occasion, once again, all they wanted was the oil. It was nothing to do with Russia. It was nothing to do with anything else other than oil. It's all come out in recent years that the only thing they wanted from that situation was oil. Now, it's that the three people that actually put this together, it sort of intrigued me a little bit because, right, first of all, so you've got Kermit Roosevelt Jr., and he was a CIA field leader in Tehran. Now, fucking kudos in the name. It's if you're going through life called Kermit, you know, so you're going to blow some shit up. It's like people, you're going to take a lot of abuse as a kid. You know, you're going to go through some shit. Don't call your kids Kermit. They'll do shit. And funnily enough, it's the names that I actually want to pick on. So Alan Dulles, the CIA director, and then John Foster Dulles, the MI6 personnel who was involved in that. So I should have actually had a wee check before to check if they were related, but the fact that the two of them have the same surname, one's from the UK, one's from America, and they happen to be involved in the same operations in the Middle East, you know, you go into nepotism now when you're talking about the Bushes and the Clintons and the, you know, it's like there's lots of families that are maybe not, you know, just presidents, but there's lots of families as well that are sort of like situated around all these politicians that are all related to each other. You see now how it's like Donald Trump, who's got Jared Kushner in his cabinet, he's married to his daughter, and then it's like his other son's just married some girl who is like the daughter of some Israeli something. They're all Jews now or whatever. But also the thing about that there is that the UK also wanted to do this. They were going to call it Operation Boot. That's where the UK had their own version of it, they were all ready to go, and they just happened to like get America to agree to be involved. So it's like we were already going to do it, and America just wanted to join in. Again, it's that used the excuse is the Cold War, and they didn't want Russia to have allies and develop personal interest in the area. So it's again like everything they were doing at that time was all just to beat Russia to it, and that's how that transpired. So we're going to crack on, and so we're going to get to number 3, and this one is how the CIA flooded the American streets with crack cocaine.
Theories look like children's bedtime stories. This is the dark truth behind the war on drugs, and trust me, what you're about to discover will fundamentally change how you view the relationship between your government and the communities it swore to protect. But before we unravel this nightmare, we need to go back to where it all began. June 1971, when President Richard Nixon stood before the American people and made a declaration that would echo through the decades. Nixon announced that drug abuse had become America's public enemy number 1, launching what would become known as the War on Drugs. People was far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. This wasn't just about public health or safety. This was about power, control, and maintaining political dominance through any means necessary. The war on drugs became the perfect weapon to target specific communities while maintaining the facade of legitimate law enforcement.
So there you just seen it. It's the CIA flooding our streets with crack cocaine and stuff like that there. Now, it's a couple of things to mention about this is like a lot of the areas done it in was predominantly black areas and stuff like that there. And one of the things that's been leveled towards the CIA since this has come out is, oh, you targeted black people and you targeted black communities and stuff like that there. Also, they proved that's one of the things that the investigation didn't prove. So they didn't prove they were targeting black people through the investigation. So they can't call the American government inherently racist. They didn't prove that anybody from the CIA was directly selling crack cocaine, which they had people with relationships in the CIA who were turning a blind eye to the cartel. Again, they said that they turned a blind eye because they were too busy focused on what Russia were doing in the Cold War. So they managed to set up, import, distribute crack cocaine, all just because they were worried about Russia halfway across, the ocean. And it's not even that there. They said that they turned a blind eye and all that there. So they knew it was going on, and it's like what their big argument was is, well, nobody from the CIA was actively selling crack cocaine. Now, it's like, don't get me wrong, I don't want to question anybody's life choices or anything, but how shit would that make you feel buying crack cocaine from somebody in the CIA? Do you want to go and buy your drugs from somebody else that's doing shit in life? You don't want to go and, have an inferiority complex from who you're getting your drugs from. You don't want that. So that's bad marketing straight away. I think that's why they failed. But with that being said, that was the time the CIA filled the streets with crack. So we're going to crack on. Number 2.
Operations you've probably never heard of. Operation Midnight Climax. Yeah, the name's wild, but wait till you hear what went down. Back in the 1950s, the CIA was obsessed with mind control. Under Project MKUltra, they launched Operation Midnight Climax. Crazy, right? They set up secret safe houses in cities like San Francisco and New York, but get this. The safe houses were disguised as brothels. They used prostitutes to lure in unsuspecting men with the promise of paid sex. Once inside, these men were given LSD without their knowledge or consent. And here's the kicker. The CIA operatives watched everything unfold from behind one-way mirrors. Imagine being a fly on that wall. So why did they do this? They wanted to study the effects of LSD on behavior and mental states. But let's be real, this was totally illegal and unethical. President Truman had already banned spying on American citizens in 1947, but the CIA acted like they were above the law. And it wasn't just random guys they experimented on. There were reports of mentally disabled children being used as test subjects. Yeah, let that sink in for a moment. Everything blew up in the 1970s when journalist Seymour Hersh exposed the CIA's dirty secrets. Public outcry was massive, leading to congressional investigations, but the CIA had already destroyed most of their records. Convenient, right? Despite the outrage, we still don't know the full extent of what went down. The CIA's cloak of secrecy made sure of that. So what do you think? Was this justifiable in the name of national security or a gross violation of human rights?
LSD and hookers, what's not to like? Finally, the government's doing something for us. So that was Operation Midnight Climax, and where that becomes strange or unnerving or anything like that there is not just everybody was having a good time in brothels and, taking drugs and having a drink, whatever, and sounds, great crack. Everybody's down for that, but it does take a sinister turn because they're also being poisoned. They're being manipulated, tortured. They're trying. Again, there's a running theme with this. America blamed this on the fact that the Russians in the Cold War and the KGB and stuff like that there were having mind control programs. When they say it's mind control programs as well, what they directly said was, say it's a prisoner of war that's taken by Russia and they come back to America and then they're coming back like a sleeper cell, mind controlled sleeper cell, Russian spy, and that's actually the birth of where that started from. It's like a sleeper cell, because obviously had, the KGB would have had earlier access to mind control techniques. Also the likes of blackmail. Obviously if you're frequenting brothels and stuff like that, you don't want the missus to find out. I'm sure it's like that's the kind of stuff they were doing. And again, so the way they blame Russia for this happening in America, it's like, I didn't realise it too much till so it was sort of a, even now, Russia's still the boogeyman. Russia is, they still have to, like, even now, it's like the Trump thing, it's like it just couldn't be like, you know, Trump was corrupt, it had to be corrupted by Russia. It's like there's something inherently, like a chip in the shoulder, where it's like, it's just, they seem to like not be able to let this go. The way they actually achieved this is what they would do is they would employ prostitutes on the CIA payroll. They would have them go to the bars and pick up Johns. It's just like Johns and Janes, what they call basically dead bodies in America. So they did call them Johns, which is telling. And then after that, either, well, before or after, I wasn't there. It's drug them or get them back and drug them. And there was things in these houses like two-way mirrors and stuff like that there, so where people were physically actually watching them, seeing that they're into it. So there would be, there's like hypnosis techniques and stuff like that there. So these people were like absolutely tortured. And also here as well, so this took place, I've just actually noticed in my notes there, it took place in Marin County, New York, and again in San Francisco. They seem to have like hot spots for military action or military operations and stuff where they just seem to use over and over again. So usually when you see like a place pop up, even now, it just popped into my head there, you're talking about Operation Midnight Climax, and you're talking about how it's like they've got secret houses, brothels and stuff like that there, and they're drugging and putting people in a state where they're very easily manipulated. And then it's that you go back, come forward to like just now. It's like you were just like talking in the news there. It's Prince Andrew, how it's like he visited Epstein's New York mansion and stuff like that there. So they seem to have like bases for all these all these people that do the same sort of thing. They seem to be like spread out, but they seem to all be in like the same sort of places. Again, it's like San Francisco, New York, Marin County. I haven't really seen much about that, but I'm sure if I paid attention now that, you know, I'm talking about it, I'm sure it'd pop up more than once. So again, that was number 2, and that was Operation Midnight Climax. We're just going to crack on straight to the final one. This one's probably the most recent in the list, and it's number 1. It's the Iraq War.
This is never before seen footage of British soldiers invading Iraq in 2003. It was taken on the 24th of March and shows Royal Marine Commandos on the Al Faw Peninsula in the southeast of the country. Within a month, they had completed the first part of their mission, capturing Basra while the Americans went north and took the capital of Baghdad. Next, they had to find Iraq's brutal dictator, Saddam Hussein, and disarm him of his weapons of mass destruction. There was one problem though. Saddam didn't have any.
And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
So why were these soldiers looking for weapons of mass destruction?
An axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world.
And why did the Iraq War happen in the first place?
So the Iraq War is probably one that we're almost familiar with. It's probably one that's happened, I think it's the only one that's actually happened here in the list during our lifetime. So well, depending on your age, so I think the crack cocaine one in America was in the 80s, but the Iraq War, obviously that was my lifetime, and it's definitely the, you know, recent history. Now, so just everybody knows the story of that. They said they had weapons of mass destruction. They went in, couldn't find any weapons of mass destruction, but then again, so the conspiracy behind that, and the thing that people don't actually realise is, just like I showed you in the last one, where Barack Obama had funded ISIS, trained ISIS, militarised their troops, given them weapons, you know, safe houses, stuff like that there. The CIA once again done that with Saddam Hussein. He was very much a CIA agent at the beginning. They paid them, they trained them, it's everything they needed to do to get Saddam Hussein into that Iraq hot chair, and then he stopped doing what they want him to do. Now, the thing is about the weapons of mass destruction, and as you maybe seen it, I hesitated earlier on, and it's because I was actually going to bring this up. It was Iran that Iraq was having a wee tussle with, a wee war, or a wee fight, and Saddam Hussein was probably posturing a little bit, going, you know, so we've got this, we've got that, don't attack, we've got this. And the CIA took that as a, you know, oh, we've got intelligence of, you know, mass destruction and stuff like that there. So when you go all the way back to 1953 and realise that Americans will put the government in Iran, and as I said, it's like, you go, oh, that was 1953, but you're big enough, you're rich enough, and, you know, you're motivated enough to do it in the first place. You're not going to let it go. You're not. So you can rest assured that America, or somebody in American government, or somebody with American ties to American government, is somewhat in control of Iran today, because you don't allow someone to take over that isn't already in your pocket, because what's the point in doing all this for 5-6 years? That guy leaves and then it's all right, it's a free country again. They don't do it. It's not how it works. It never has worked. In fact, if you go back all the way to, you know, when America beat Britain and stuff like that there, they still paid the king rent. Tell me why you would win a war and then pay the loser rent and then steal their colours and then found your founding documents upon their law, which was common law at the time. So basically, it's like, if you look at that, it's like UK's just usurped America. America's usurped half the world. It's like they just sort of like drift into each other. They don't actually take, like, you think like a war is what you see in TV. A war is where, oh, it's like this man hates him and he's going to kill him, and it's like they're doing all this bombing, and then it's like you look at like how many people in war end up killing themselves at the end, or Saddam Hussein or was hung, Bin Laden was thrown out a helicopter, you know, all that. That's just to get rid of the person, because he can't say shit if he's fallen from a helicopter, you know what I mean? It's like it's hard to hear him. His voice isn't all that clear in the way down, you know. And again, that was Tony Blair and George Bush, and that's another time where the UK have been involved in American CIA operations. Just to remind you, there was no weapons of mass destruction found. They did say at the time as well, it said there was a nuclear program. They did find plans that Saddam Hussein had a nuclear program about 20 years, or not Saddam Hussein, sorry, Iraq had a nuclear program about 20 years earlier. But America knew that. I know America knew that, because they were already funding the new leader of Iraq. They knew everything that was going on. It's like, I don't know, like, if you don't understand by now just the lengths that the government are willing to go to in order to get their motives or narratives or results or find out information that they want to get them, you know, how much the government absolutely fucking violate people on a daily basis. Like, bear in mind, it's like that list I showed the other day, and it's like I was scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I actually overtalked it. I actually said, oh, it's like there, so that's that list up, and it was still scrolling whilst I was talking, or under I talked that a little bit, I should say. But when you think about that, that's only the things we know about. That's only the things that they've come out and told us about. Now, I don't believe they come out and tell you for any good reason. I don't believe there's anybody in Congress or American government or American lawmaking that would sit there and they would go, oh, it's like, you know, we need to help the people, we need to tell the people the truth. It's that you can't tell, you know, it's whatever. It's the same thing. The reason is I believe that they don't want to tell you the truth is because they wouldn't put time limits on things. For example, so the whole thing with COVID-19 is they tried to put a 75-year, you know, hold on the information being released to the public. Now, that's not uncommon. It's like they have that in all of these things. So it's like when they keep saying to you things like, oh, it's like it was released 20 years after the fact and stuff like that there. That's not because, like, the government should and do have to tell you, but they're not NDAs, but it's like these things where it's like they're hidden and they don't need to disclose them for a certain amount of time. It's something they just do through the courts. So whatever you're talking about or whatever at the minute, they'll just wait it out till you forget it, because they'll just put it out in the courts. And the courts will say, oh, 25, 35, 40 years, you know what I mean? And it's like, what relevance is it in 35 years whether your government's being corrupt now? And that's why they wait that amount of time, because they know that it's not relevant in 35 years. You can't do nothing in 35 years. So if your government's fucking you over right now, you've got to wait 35 years to know about it. I almost preferred the fucking Midnight Climax. At least that was, you know, that was instant regard, instant smiles. But that's today's video. 5 times government have lied to the people. Or sorry, 5 more times the government have lied to the people. Now, which one of today's topics do you think is the worst? I think they sort of vary on, you know, everybody dies. There's a lot of death in today's one. Personally, you know, Operation Climax seems the best one. If it was going to be targeted, you know, it's like, at least let me put down, you know, what kind of operations I'm taking part in, you know, help my country. But what one did you think was the worst? And again, if there's any operations or projects I've not touched on yet and you think it's a good one, drop it in the comments, like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thank you.